Ghost of Tsushima has been eagerly anticipated since we got a look at it way back at PlayStation's Paris Games Week in 2017, then again in 2018 at E3. You might remember that Sony had the American guy playing the shakuhachi, which caused some controversy and, looked a bit ridiculous. The internet reverberated with the sound of jaws dropping. Sony had delivered a killer 1-2 with Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us 2 promising to take the undeniable king of the current gen ring, the PS4, out on a high. Fast forward 2 years, The Last of Us 2 has been released to critical acclaim and the seemingly now prerequisite quote-unquote fan turmoil. By the way, if you never caught our thoughts on Naughty Dog's masterful sequel, go check that out. And now, at last, Ghost of Tsushima is with us. But is it any good? I think so. Let's get into it. Ghost of Tsushima centers around the titular island of Tsushima as it comes under attack from a Mongolian invasion fleet led by main big bad and descendant of Genghis himself, Khotun Khan. The island is overwhelmed by the Mongols' advanced weaponry and savagery, but whereas in real life the invaders were eventually defeated by a deadly storm, in Ghost of Tsushima the storm is made flesh. You play as Jin Sakai, a samurai who must learn to grow past the traditional values of the samurai code to defeat the brutal Mongol horde. The story moves along nicely and is driven by one of the better main villains in recent gaming. Khotun Khan is a layered, compelling antagonist, hell-bent on victory and crushing the quaint, seemingly outdated samurai with brute force as well as intelligence. And Ghost of Tsushima occupies that same line-blurring space that The Last of Us 2 did. Cinematic in its scope and presentation, Ghost of Tsushima makes no secret of its ambition to be taken seriously and wears its influences on its sleeve proudly with countless nods and references to the films of Akira Kurosawa, even going so far as to include a black and white mode for those proper Seven Samurai vibes. I opted to play the game in Japanese with English subtitles for extra authenticity, though fair warning, the lip syncing can be pretty bad here and can take you out of the game if you let it. At the core of the game is a genuinely interesting friction in the main character Jin. Faced with an invading force that has no interest in obeying the strict moral codes of honor and respect that drive the samurai, Jin has to learn to let go of the elite warrior class's strict dogma and learn to become a ghost, hiding in the shadows to take down enemies by any means necessary to save the island and Japan itself from Khan. Jin is also powered by guilt. Having failed to save his father from being killed as a child, his uncle Shimura from being captured, and seemingly his home from being overrun by the Mongolian invasion, Jin has all the ingredients for an engaging central character, and so the stage is set for another AAA title to once again hammer home the fact that video games are now serious entertainment that can occupy the same space as Hollywood cinema. It came as some surprise then that I found the first hour of Ghost of Tsushima tedious and distinctly underwhelming. Maybe it's just the constant barrage of hype and hyperbole, but it can be disconcerting feeling after the now standard years of hype and threats of elevating the medium to get your hands on the controller at last and realize that these games are just that, games. The opening cutscene looks great, but before long you're in control, thrown in without a tutorial, and the player is left to fend for themselves, hacking away at poorly AI-controlled enemies with a basic combat system that feels uninspiring. I didn't even think the game looked particularly good, and this feeling continued in the early stages as you meet Yuna after being saved by her on Komoda Beach. I felt like I was playing a mix of Assassin's Creed and For Honor. Where was the life-changing experience promised in the trailers? I asked myself. Persevering, I continued, and after a lengthy preamble, you mount your horse and are finally let loose upon the open world of Tsushima. The title card appears as you race into the open terrain, tall grass swaying while you gallop through swirling leaves, and the majestic score rises to the occasion, and the game starts to make sense. Tsushima feels like a living, breathing place. Any initial graphical misgivings are put to bed. This game is stunning. The color palette is gorgeous with vivid yellows, open blue skies, and dense green forests bringing feudal Japan to life. It's a joy to navigate hot springs, remote temples, and wide open fields. Light trickles through dense treetops, mist envelops you, and it's clear that Sucker Punch have put a lot of energy into making you feel like you really are in 13th century Japan. There were countless times when I actually stopped playing the game just to admire it. From sunsets to storms and moonlit rivers, the game begged me to stop and take stock of what I was seeing, and I was only too happy to oblige. Truthfully, the graphics do a lot of heavy lifting here, and a lot of my enjoyment has come from experiencing the world that the developers have created. Though the environments can sometimes look a little plastic, it is an undeniably beautiful game, and as you progress, so too does the combat, which ends up feeling elegant and satisfying instead of basic and clunky. The standoff mechanic in particular is extremely cool and really helps to solidify the feeling that the samurai were truly masters of the sword. The lack of an overbearing heads-up display really helps the immersion, and the use of wind in guiding the player is a stroke of genius, further bringing you into the game experience. Sucker Punch deserves real credit here for removing traditional obstacles that often jolt the player out of the immersive worlds we get to encounter in these modern blockbuster titles. I often found myself wondering how much better this game would look if it were on the PlayStation 5, a feeling it must be said that was hammered home by the countless times I had to squeeze through tight spaces a la The Last of Us 2, a clear design trick employed to reduce the strain on the PS4. Also, it's a minor complaint, but it's a shame that for all your supreme swordplay, no matter how deft your strikes, stabs and slices, there's no dismembering to be seen. Gory as it is, surely we should be seeing some limbs flying or the odd decapitation or two. Returning back to the AI too, though the stealth options are enjoyable, even on the hardest difficulty setting the AI is below par, rendering that side of the game mostly redundant. Truthfully, there is often a feeling that we've played this game before. A lot. If you've played Assassin's Creed, The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us and so on, you'll have experienced almost everything this game has to offer already. Creeping through tall grass, a heightened senses mode to track enemies, riding horseback from A to B, then back to A, side quests. There's an argument to say that Ghost of Tsushima brings very little that's new to the table, and I did find that disappointing. How many times can we play the same game with a different lick of paint before it gets old? That's a question that hangs over a lot of my time with Ghost of Tsushima, but what Sucker Punch does get right, it gets so right that I feel obliged to temper my cynicism and say that Ghost of Tsushima, while it doesn't quite live up to some of the hype, is a game very worthy of your patience and your respect. The game encourages us to use some of those qualities so valued in the samurai way of life to appreciate it for what it is, even as Jin learns to go beyond and into a brave new world and redefine himself. Here's hoping developers can learn from that in the years ahead and push themselves forward to deliver new ideas in gaming. For now though, Ghost of Tsushima survives the early missteps and is a game very worthy of your attention and your respect, and it's a fitting shakuhachi-led swan song to Sony's superb PlayStation 4. Here at Ultimo Warrior, we award Ghost of Tsushima 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. We'd love to know what you thought in the comments. If you liked this video, drop us a like and make sure you subscribe to see more content just like this. See you next time.